The winter spent with the Undant was uneventful. Minigumish and his panther had disappeared into the wilderness. Glooskap was gone, but my immediate family and my wolf dog, Nishina Day, were here in the Undant land to keep me company. The Undant were proficient in growing corn, beans, and squash, so there was never any shortage of food. Kina Adonin and Ugwe Niwan made sure our Amawini band hunted and contributed our share to the supply of the food for the community. The two warrior women were always leading hunting trips for moose, deer, and elk to help sustain the diet of the village with meat. My mother, Wabananang, and the other women hosted feasts every 10 to 15 suns for the Undant with the game that our hunters brought back. When we weren't hunting, our time was spent repairing weapons and making new arrows, clubs, spears, and clothing from the skins of the animals we slew. We also assisted in the repair of the shelters, made pipes and crafted snowshoes to get around in the snow. And some of the clothes we fashioned were traded with the Undant or given to our hosts to repay their hospitality. The longhouses we stayed in were always smoky, even though there were holes in the ceilings to allow the smoke to escape. I and my fellow residents' eyes constantly watered and stung from the wood smoke. And to aid in the remedy of the irritation, the Undant women prepared a tea from golden seal leaves that we used as an eye wash. This helped to ease the inflammation, but wasn't a cure. The rodent problem in the longhouse was looked after by a resident fox that seemed quite well fed for his work. It wasn't the same fox I had befriended the previous winter, but another just as efficient at hunting. The matter of head lice was another concern. Even though I had covered my sleeping quarters with cedar boughs to ward off the lice, the number of people and closeness of quarters aided these little pests to spread without any limits. Finally, I had to give in and shave my head like my Undant companions, leaving only a scalp lock at the top that I made stand up with ample applications of bear grease. Next, attaching 3 turkey feathers on the back of my braid of hair that I had left long at the nape of my neck. The women would never shave their heads, so they took turns combing one another's hair, using very fine bone and wooden combs. It was usually done by sitting by the fire and flicking the bugs and the flames from the combs. I say we spent an uneventful winter among the Undant, but there was one incident that created a stir that broke up the dullness. A little Undant girl decided one afternoon during a bright, unseasonably warm winter's day to search for dry berries while there was a crust on the snow, making her travels easier. She took a reed basket with a lid on it and with her and returned to the longhouse after foraging for a good while outside the village walls. When she got back, I was sitting beside my cot eating corn and squash soup with Nish and Nedag at my feet. There were about 20 men, women, and children sitting around a fire closest to me, eating, playing games, and laughing. The young girl sat unnoticed among everyone, and grabbing a wooden bowl, she reached into her basket to take her berries out, cleaned them in water, then tossed them back into the bowl. At this time, all the time she did this, she had a huge smile on her face, seeming very much like any other child enjoying her task. After a short time watching her clean the berries, I observed the basket lid move. When she replaced it after taking some of the berries out, a small black nose poked out from under the lid, followed by a pair of eyes, then a head. A pair of feet with long claws emerged and grabbed the side of the basket, knocking off the lid without making any sound. The lid rolled among the unconcerned and oblivious people gathered around the fire, until a sudden exodus of people took place as the occupants of the longhouse and the animal simultaneously recognized each other's identities, causing a sudden rise in the noise level. The stress level of the small animal then escalated along with its black and white tail, which shot into the air, releasing an aroma that quickly stumped up the longhouse. When I first spied the animal appearing out of the basket, I had dropped my soup bowl, startling my dog, and we both had beat a hasty retreat. The two of us had got to the door before anyone else, closely followed by a stampede of scurrying occupants, laughing and screaming. Some of the slow-rising groups basking lazily in the warmth of fire, were the recipients of a disgusting odor that stung their eyes and marked their clothing with an unbearable stench. It was many days before the smell left the longhouse. Some of the residents departed for a while to stay with friends, while the men burned cedar and juniper to get rid of the stink. I could never figure out how that little girl got the shaggy skunk into the basket without it spraying her. Maybe it was hungry and the berries were the lure, but it did break up the monotony of the village and was the talk of everyone for 6 or 7 sons.